Hello and welcome. My name is Brian McAvoy.
And I'm Tim Shank. This is Two Cyborgs and a Microphone. I'm a cyborg.
And I'm cyborg number 2. And we have a microphone. There you have it.
There you have it. What does CRISPR mean to you, Brian?
That's where I keep my lettuce, Tim.
Exactly.
Thanks for joining us.
No, just kidding.
Answering the tough questions.
Today we're talking about genetic engineering and gene editing specifically. CRISPR, and this is the third or fourth time I've actually said these words aloud, CRISPR stands for Clustered Regularly Interspaced Short Palindromic Repeats. Mouthful.
That doesn't roll off the tongue.
So the reason we're talking about CRISPR is that is the current best method, I believe. It's what's in use for editing the genome. And it's being used, it was used in plants initially, I think. But now it's being used actually, they're testing it on humans. They're testing it on adult humans. China has done some experiments with embryos. Mm-hmm. So it's an exciting time. I mean, we're looking at it at a point where we might start seeing super babies, or we might start being able to immunize somebody from cancer, things like that.
Well, that's getting rid of cancer. I mean, if that's a possibility, that is one of these steps to immortality, is curing those kinds of diseases.
Absolutely. The way it works, and I'm just going to go real broad on this because I'm not
I'm an
a genetic
electrical guy. So this whole squishy sciences stuff, I shouldn't say squishy sciences, but like the DIY bio that gets into organics, man, it goes right over my head.
And you can go real deep on this. I mean, I'm reading the Wikipedia page and it goes into depth. So if you want to look it up, it's CRISPR, also called CRISPR-Cas9, Cas9. It is a very complex science, but essentially the Cas9 and CRISPR, whatever genetic sequence you put in between those in the molecular structure of this molecule, when you insert that into the nucleus of a cell, it will essentially find matching proteins on both sides of it and insert that genetic sequence into the DNA. I think that's exciting. I mean, that's really cool because now we can insert genetic sequences into a live being, and it works in adults. There's problems with genetic engineering in adults, but even in an embryo, in the first stages of development, you can use this to insert DNA or even cut DNA out of the genome.
Well, the understanding I had of CRISPR is that it's in a long line of techniques for editing genomes. The reason I thought CRISPR was so exciting is because it's become approachable and usable for the garage hacker.
It is.
Which is, why we're talking about it, because, genetic engineering a few years ago was not for the do-it-yourself person. That was scary, mad science stuff. It was magic. And now it's not.
For anybody who wants to get into this, you can find, I don't know if it's still active, but you'll find it on Kickstarter, that you can get a CRISPR kit to make a flower glow or a genetically engineered yeast. It was on Kickstarter for a while. The Kickstarter campaign might be done, but I'm sure you can still get a hold of it. It's like $50.
I think the Kickstarter is over, but there are clones popping up in its wake, and yes, clones. People are making other CRISPR kits. They're not just the one that appeared on Kickstarter.
Great.
And as those become popular, they're going to become cheaper.
So one thing that I saw, I think it was towards the end of last year, maybe October, Chinese scientists used CRISPR to genetically engineer live human embryos to make them immune to AIDS. So that is an example. It's a demonstration of what we expect to be possible. Now that I don't think that worked out. I think 7 out of 40 of the embryos lived, and then they were terminated because of ethical questions. Well, genetic engineering babies the general society is not ready for that yet. And China and the Eastern world, they embrace human augmentation, and the idea of breeding a super child or a superhuman is not against their culture at all. Where in America or the Western world, you'd have a lot of
pushback,
a lot of problems with that. Yes. If I were a lab assistant in that lab, I would be tempted to take one of those soon to be terminated fetuses and see if I could do something. I'm bad. I'm an evil person. I shouldn't have said that, and I shouldn't be thinking it.
It's making it in the show. Well, I think there's been one other immaculate conception in the history of the world. So That kid would have a lot to live up to.
So that's where we're at. I mean, and now they've done another experiment. I'm going to pull up the article because this is fresh to me. They injected an adult human with cells that were edited by the CRISPR-Cas9 technology to cure lung cancer. And I'm not sure where that landed. This article doesn't say what the results were, but they actually did it in a human trial.
Well, whether it worked or not, the fact that somebody thought it was viable enough to put into a human, that's cool.
Yeah, it's really cool, and it opens the door. I mean, now that we've gone through a few iterations of this testing, and somebody's done it on embryos. Actually, China's done it on embryos twice now, to my knowledge. So there might be more. So now that we've gone through a few iterations, and there's no huge public outcry that says that we're tampering with the laws of nature, which we are. I think we will start to see a snowball effect where now that we know that it's not going to be resisted significantly by the public, that we'll start to see a lot of work in this. And now one thing I alluded to when we started was why it doesn't work in a... I mean, it's easy to say, okay, we're going to add wings to a human, make a flying human.
Seems legit to me. Let's start tomorrow.
Yeah, well, it doesn't really work because you can add wings, but you also have to add the nervous system. You have to add the circulatory system. You have to have... There's so many different little things that go into a genetic trait or a trait of a living creature. It's complex and we don't fully understand it yet. These first steps we're taking are going to help us understand it. We're going to end up with some mutants for sure.
Anything outside the human norm is a mutant, so there.
Sure. But we'll see what we end up with here, and there's going to be some probably pretty grotesque stuff that leads this off, and hopefully that doesn't start some kind of revolution against it.
Well, I think we'll at least see some of those mutations in mice first, and I think a flying mouse would be kind of cool. I mean, we call them bats right now, but
I was thinking, I mean, plants that can. I've imagined several different things that you could do with plants. You know, making them mobile somehow, making those roots have muscle fibers, stuff like that would be just kind of wild to see.
That's terrifying.
It's terrifying. No, that's why it'd be wild to see, Brian.
Let's harvest some lumber. Where'd the forest go? It has migrated. And they could carry hobbitses.
Right.
The Ents.
The giant trees, the Ents, right.
Tolkien.
So it's exciting, and it's going crazy. I mean, if you do search for CRISPR, you'll find all kinds of articles about what's happening. It's not just China, and there's things happening in the United States about it. So we're headed towards a new kind of human. And at some level, that's a little scary because it makes us all lesser. I mean, everybody who's not... So you can go back to your sci-fi for stories about what could possibly happen, and there's so many things that could go wrong. There's so much competition in our world right now that the people who are given this sort of advantage are going to be essentially perfect from our perspective.
Well, they're going to be a step above us in some way, whether it's mentally or physically, or whether they have 6 fingers on each hand, so they're a better piano player. I was thinking about this earlier, and so I have a question for you, Tim.
Okay.
In the future, what do you think is going to be more popular as far as viewers go? Do you think it's going to be the regular Olympics, or do you think it's going to be the augmented Olympics?
Oh, definitely augmented Olympics. I've been waiting for that for a long time. I want to see cyborgs. I want to see really juiced up athletes. I want to see genetically engineered, modified people. I want to see what is possible. From another perspective, I can understand how another person would want to see somebody who is tooled exactly as they are tooled perform.
Yeah, the designer athletes or the god babies.
It's an interesting concept, Brian, and we're screaming towards it.
Yeah, I mean, since they do Olympics every 4 years, we can just alternate.
Sure.
And we can have Olympics each year. Summer, winter, summer, winter, summer, winter.
Sure.
I have another conundrum for you, if you want to hear it.
Yeah, so what's that conundrum?
It's a 2-part. Would you pay 10% of your wages for your entire life in order to get a 10% increase in your cognition or your recall or your pattern recognition? And a 10% increase would put you well to the right of the middle of the bell curve. I mean, we're talking like you would be peak human in that ability. Would that be worth it to you?
Absolutely.
I would too.
Intelligence cannot be undervalued, in my opinion.
And that's why I didn't say, like, if you could lift more than you can lift now? Because I know that mentation and cognition is more important to you. So here's the second part of my question. Would you sponsor the creation of an embryo with those capabilities if you got 10% of its wages from its entire lifetime?
I think I would. I would probably just give my money with no return to see this happen. And you're laughing, but I'm serious. I would love to see this happen.
Oh no, I'm laughing because I think that'd be the good way. That'd be the more noble way to go, of course.
Well, I'm not a noble person by any means, but I would definitely. I think I would like to see that happen. I am all for intelligence. Is whatever we can do as a species to increase our intelligence. That's all okay. Everything's okay. Whatever the cost. Whatever the cost.
Whatever kids come in the next generation, they're the ones who are going to be taking care of us when we're older, which is why we should be nice to computers, because someday, we're going to be subject to the whim of computers.
Unless we get them inside our heads somehow.
Yeah, I was just reading Elon Musk's statement on that.
I saw that. Yeah, a friend of mine sent that to me too. And he's absolutely right.
Now, this question isn't related to any of the other stuff. As humans need to improve just to evolve, the regular rate of evolution just isn't cutting it for us, at least not in my opinion. I don't think yours either. Do you think that augmenting humans through technology directly, like finger magnets and medical implants and that sort of thing, is the way of the future? Or do you think it's going to be genetic engineering of children before they're born?
I do think it's going to be genetic engineering. What we're doing is cutting edge now, but in 5 years, it's going to be useless.
I don't think useless, but yeah, I think it's a diminishing returns thing. And I can definitely see genetic stuff, and I can definitely see them combining where we create offspring who are capable of interfacing with computers after an implant or something. Because right now, our brains are pretty messy. Messy business.
Yeah, and genetic engineering, using genetic engineering to create a native interface with our technology, that would be a very good first step. But at the same time, I think the genetic engineering can take us to the point of where we don't actually need the electromechanical to perform the same tasks.
I don't think we're going to be born with USB ports or Wi-Fi.
Maybe conductive channels. I mean, depending on, I guess I don't know. I'm not a scientist. There's a lot that's possible and a lot that's possible in my head, and that doesn't necessarily match up.
I think anyone who knows quite a bit about genetic engineering listening to us probably thinks we're both off our rockers and just horribly undereducated. And I have no problem admitting I'm guilty to that.
Absolutely.
As I said, I'm an electrical guy, so all this messy organic stuff, nope, not me.
So tell me about this dog.
There's a breeder somewhere who used a CRISPR kit, I believe, and he genetically modified, I think, Dalmatians so that they would not have a genetic urinary tract dysfunction. And the FDA got wind of it and said, hey, nice job, but you can never, ever breed that dog with any dog that leaves your farm, and you can never sell that dog or let it go ever. That's kind of a scary thought, but at the same time kind of good. I mean, I don't want somebody genetically engineering hamsters with laser vision and putting them in pet stores, but it's, what about the freedom to just say, hey, this dog is healthy, it's going to live longer, and it should be bred into the population to get rid of this genetic dysfunction?
I tend to think that we should. There's one issue. We don't really necessarily know all of the effects of a genetic modification. I mean, we can modify one gene and get whatever desired result that was. But it could have something like trickle-down effects to other genes, dependencies, that could cause other mutations that maybe have an effect. I wonder if the FDA has the right to say that, because it seems to me that laws regarding this are probably unwritten at this point, and probably it's pretty gray area.
They are. In fact, the article I read even mentioned that. They said, okay, the FDA didn't know how to classify it. A similar story was they didn't allow somebody to sell his beer yeast because it had the fluorescent gene expressed in it. So you could have glow-in-the-dark beer. I mean, that's cool, but they had to classify it as a food dye, and it wasn't tested and approved by the FDA. So even though it's just yeast, with, a genetic structure that's different from standard old yeast, they wouldn't allow them to distribute it.
Oh, and while we're talking about this, let's talk about the things that they have done with yeast and CRISPR. They made a yeast that manufactures THC.
Really?
They made a yeast, yeah.
That's right out of Mr. Robot.
Yeah, and they made a yeast that manufactures morphine, as a matter of fact. I believe it might, I think it's morphine. That's just one piece of it. Those are the two things that stick in my mind, which probably says something about me. There was a project or a plan for a project to create medications from genetically engineered yeast. So you would have a medical printer, a medication printer. So that's a different side of the genetic engineering, and probably a much more useful side than modifying humans at this point, is to modify things, simple organisms like yeast, to do what we want them to do.
Yeah, so I was thinking about like this, using organisms to manufacture drugs, and then you mentioned the THC, and I thought it'd be a great April Fool's Day to replace somebody's gut flora with the kind that produces THC and just make them perma-baked, April Fools.
God, that would be miserable. I would be so miserable. That would not feel good, Brian. That would suck.
What's wrong with Tommy? He's always got the munchies, and he can't drive.
If I understand correctly, though, the yeast doesn't produce a lot. So it may not be enough. I mean, you may need a significant amount of that yeast. This was all done, I think, mostly in MIT, but there might be other colleges that were doing it.
Other colleges specifically doing THC, or just other colleges doing genetic stuff?
Doing the THC.
Oh,
and
okay.
I imagine they're all doing it by now. Maybe not officially, but the college culture.
New division of the biology program. Hopefully someone in the comments will chime in and say what's actually in the realm of possibility and kind of put us in our place. We wouldn't say no to that.
Thank you for listening. We'd like to invite our listeners to email us at cyborgs@twocyborgs.com. That's changed from the old one.
Ooh, new email,
new website, new everything. Cyborgs@twocyborgs.com. And I recommend you visit twocyborgs.com.
Check out the website Tim just mentioned, twocyborgs.com. And if you haven't already, order up one of those hooded sweatshirts. You get the Two Cyborgs logo on your tummy. You get to support our podcast, and you'll get to look so good doing it. And, I mean, we're right there, right on your guts. It's so cool. I'm wearing one right now. I also got a coffee mug because sometimes I need a big jug of fuel in the morning. This is Brian McAvoy.
And this is Tim Shank. You have been listening to Two Cyborgs and a Microphone, brought to you by two cyborgs who coincidentally have a microphone.
Like, follow, share, +1, and don't forget to subscribe on any of our popular podcast services, including Google Play Music, iTunes, and Stitcher. Help us move up the podcast ladder by subscribing and commenting on iTunes.
And we're also now on TuneIn Radio. You can't get Alexa to understand it. I've tried. And she keeps
I'm gonna
on
try
saying,
right now.
Yeah.
Alexa, play Two Cyborgs and a Microphone. Whatever.
You didn't even listen to her. No, she never finds it. She never finds it, no matter what you do. Stupid.